Hi, this is Jason Renault again with the Alternative Mobile Services Association, and today I'm with Carly McDonald of Representative Adam Smith's office in Washington, D.C. Now, Representative Smith is from Washington State, and he's a longtime advocate for mobile crisis issues. Welcome, Carly.
Hi, it's really great to be here, Jason. Thanks for having us.
Carly, tell us a little bit about your position in Representative Smith's office.
Yeah, so I work as Representative Smith's communications director, so helping to facilitate all of his communication with press, writing press releases, social posts, videos, any pesky newsletters you get from our office. I help have a hand in helping to draft those. So
That's great. So
that's the kind of
you
work I do.
you make mountains out of molehills.
I try to.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so you're here to tell us, to communicate to us about this new bill
Mhm.
that Representative Smith is bringing forward. But first, tell us a little bit about Representative Smith and his activism in this area.
Yeah, Representative Smith has been a member of Congress since 1997, and he's been a longtime advocate for all types of behavioral health and mental health issues. And you'll notice that he's not on a committee of jurisdiction for either of those things, but it's a passion project for him. He's seen how impactful behavioral and mental health response is, especially in the Seattle area where he's from. He grew up there, has lived his whole life serving that community. And when he goes around, talks to groups, meets with advocates, meets with law enforcement, overwhelmingly, similar themes come up. And one of them is that we need to have better ways to respond to behavioral and mental health crises as they pop up in Seattle and as they pop up across the country. So that's been, a topic of conversation in our office for a long time is how can you address these really big problems of behavioral and mental health crises? Obviously, it's not something you can wave a magic wand and solve overnight with one simple bill. But we feel really good about this bill that we just introduced or reintroduced on May 29th. It's the 911 Community Crisis Responders Act. And we hope that this is an important piece of the puzzle to solving this broader, more systemic issue of ways that we respond to mental health crises generally. But what it does is it enables communities, states, localities, tribes to access funding to establish or to expand their mental health crisis response. So, how this often looks is when folks call 911 to, try to resolve some kind of dispute or, concerning issue in their neighborhood. The 911 operators work with both firefighters, with law enforcement, and importantly, with mental health professionals or service professionals who can go into this conflict or this issue, this altercation, and try to find a more peaceful remedy to whatever is happening. Try to help give those folks access to services, whether it's housing services, substance abuse services, food assistance, and try to help move them closer to a more stable situation. And oftentimes, our law enforcement officers are being asked to respond to matters that are just entirely beyond their training and their skill sets and expertise. So, what this bill is trying to do is try to help provide funding so that if those law enforcement officers want training, they can access that, but also to help them co-locate their services with other existing services in their areas. So we're really hopeful that this could be an important piece to that larger puzzle.
Now, the King County area, Seattle, Northwest Washington State, is really a hotbed of mobile crisis, not only operations, but experimentation. There's teams in a dozen different configurations in the area. What kind of influence have you heard from your constituents about this bill?
Yeah, we hear a lot of positive response towards this bill both from our constituents and from local organizations, the list of folks who have endorsed the bill is pretty long, because people from local fire departments to the folks who are providing housing services all agree that there just needs to be better coordination of this crisis response. So we hear really positive feedback, and you're absolutely right that Seattle is a real hotbed for this issue. And you're seeing a lot of funding being driven towards solving and addressing this issue. And we've started to see success from the programs that have found their home in Seattle, whether it's Health One, which is a co-response program with our local Seattle Fire Department and local human services. And they've been really successful. They have really great anecdotes on their website. I highly recommend taking a look at it. But from things to helping unhoused populations during the winters when they need to find warming shelters, to helping, find more sustainable long-term solutions for folks with substance use disorders, so that they're not reverting to calling 911 to get assistance, every week or so. There's a lot of good that these programs are already doing. And so the goal for this bill is just to provide more resources so those programs can expand and reach even more people.
And how would these resources be doled out? Do they come in the form of grants, or how does
Yes.
this work?
Yeah, it'll be in the form of a grant from SAMHSA. So it'll be a new grant program administered from SAMHSA, and that's obviously within the Department of Health and Human Services. So localities, states, tribes can all apply for that funding, and SAMHSA will be the one administering it.
And so it needs to be a governmental entity that
Yes.
not a nonprofit or for-profit organization. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But often those nonprofits or for-profits are contracting through that governmental agency. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I hate to bring up a tough subject, but you've got some chaos going on there in DC right now. What
We
is
do.
is this bill sort of just a, what's going on there? I mean, I'm not sure SAMHSA is going to exist long enough to contain this thing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I hope it does. I really hope it does. It's a really interesting situation right now. It feels like there's a lot of strife and turmoil, and that certainly is happening in a very real way. At the same time, I do think that there's hope to some extent for smallish bills like this, to hopefully make it through the process. There's a few avenues that could work for a bill like this that has bipartisan support, and that feels very common sense. One of the potential options is to attach this bill as an amendment to a larger package. Now, that's going to be tough in this current Congress because even the larger bills are having a hard time making it through the majority. But that is a potential avenue that we'll try to explore as those vehicles come through, as those larger bill packages come through. One of the other potential options would be to pass this bill on suspension. That's normally what happens with post office renaming bills, the very non-controversial bills. And one of the things we would want to do before we could get to that point is to really establish the bipartisan strong support for this bill. So we'd want to see more co-sponsors from both parties, so that we can signal to leadership that this should be a simple bill that could pass through suspension. But we're a little bit a ways away from there, something we can also work towards.
Well, I hope you let AMSA connect you with our members that are in both red and blue states that would see this as not a nonpartisan issue,
Right.
and help sponsor or persuade their local senators or House members to look at this bill seriously.
Yeah, would absolutely love that. And we're already starting to see, I mean, it's co-led by Brian Fitzpatrick's office, who is a Republican member in the Pennsylvania area. So we're seeing cross-nation, cross-party interest in this bill. but it will take a larger group, a large momentum, if you will, to get more and more folks to sign on. But it's very promising.
So, how would people, if someone wanted to contact your office to know more about this or to lend their support, how would they do that?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. We're always taking endorsements, so if there's, some kind of local organization that's interested, we would be more than happy to take an endorsement. And in that case, there's a few different emails you could hit, but you can just email me and I can pass it along to the right person. My email is my name, carly.mcdonald@mail.house.gov, and I'll get you connected with our appropriate legislative staffers. And that goes for really any kind of messages about the bill that you might want to pass along. More than happy to get you in contact with the right person.
So, you would be, what would be most helpful is organizations writing a letter of some sort on the organization letterhead saying, we support the 911 Community Crisis Responders Act.
Yeah, and also, I mean, reaching out within your own communities, whatever that might look like, trying to talk to local press about it. We're more than happy, to give supportive quotes if there are local articles about it. But yeah, we're definitely trying to build the momentum for it. We really think this is an important bill. Um, it's just about navigating these kind of crazy waters out in Washington D.C. and seeing if we can find any purchase in this crazy land.
Well, tell me about the process of building bipartisan support for something that is a somewhat neutral subject, but in this chaotic atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question because you always want to keep lines open between offices, no matter, what the party affiliation might be and no matter where they might be geographically. Because we've seen folks from Hawaii co-sponsor this bill, folks from Pennsylvania, folks from Seattle. So we're more than happy to have conversations staffer to staffer about this bill, but it is also helpful if staff hear from members of their community that this is something of value to them. Um, because it's all well and good for us to say that we think that this is a wonderful thing that every community should have more of. But if they're hearing that directly from folks on the ground, I think it's slightly more impactful.
Well, great. We'll link to the bill as it is today in the
Yes,
show notes and in the YouTube message if you're watching this on YouTube. And we'll have access to Carly's contact information. And as this bill develops, we really want to keep track of this over time, don't we?
absolutely. Yeah. And here's hoping that it can make it through. It's already been assigned to a committee.
Oh,
So that's promising. It's been assigned to the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is interestingly the committee that handles all health care policy.
really?
I know. It's an esoteric place. But now that it's at that committee level, it'll head to the subcommittee on health. And that will be where it kind of either gets its legs and gets momentum or where it might take a breather until the next Congress. But we'll definitely try to keep it moving.
And let's talk about that as a strategy for a moment, because I think a
Hmm.
lot of bills coming up from Democratic side are going to wait.
Yeah.
What does that really mean here?
Yeah, so what it means, I'm not a huge sports person, but I'm going to use a sports analogy of the building years.
Okay.
When this might not be your championship year, but you can structure your team well, you can train your current players. And I think that's what this next period would be for us if we're not able to get momentum to pass it this year. And what that means is we just want to get as many co-sponsors as we can, try to engage as many groups on this issue as we can, and lay the groundwork and foundation for hopefully a successful passage in a future Congress with maybe a little less turmoil.
So this
Uh,
might take a few
mhm.
years to build up steam.
It could. It could.
Okay, so but endorsements now help that move forward more rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about momentum and trying to build that as much as we can.
Well, Carly, we'll be checking in with you at some later time to know more about this bill as it progresses.
I look forward to it, Jason. I mean, knock on wood. It would be great to see this pass.
Take care.